After 25 years of being an MP, you are standing down. Why?
Well, I guess there's never a perfect time to stand down, Gloria. But if I stood again at the next election and won, I could, in theory, be pushing kind of 70 by the end of the next Parliament. And I've never imagined myself as somebody who would go on quite that long. I've always had a life outside politics. There's other stuff I want to do. I want to have time with my family and friends that I've kind of sacrificed in public life for the last quarter of a century. So, and with the Labour Party in a better place now, it feels easy to step back. It would have been difficult, I think, if we'd still had Corbyn, and I would have worried who might succeed me in Exeter, but I'm not so worried about that now. So it just feels like the right time for me.
You were elected in 1997 as a gay man. Now, that is totally so what now, but it wasn't in 1997. You were a trailblazer.
It was extraordinary. And when I talk to young people now about what happened in that campaign and what was thrown at me by my Tory opponent, they just cannot believe that it's possible. And it was only 25 years ago. But in a funny kind of way, it helped me because I think there was a kind of consensus, political consensus, particularly in some of the tabloid press and in the Tory party, that the public weren't ready for gay equality. Actually, I think the public were ahead of where the politicians were. We'd had gay characters in soaps for a while. Most people knew somebody who was gay in their family or circle of friends. So the attacks on me, actually, I can play to my advantage. And a lot of sort of decent, fair-minded Tories ended up voting for me because they were so repelled by the campaign against me. But it was a real watershed in British politics. And we then went into the Blair government with all those reforms sweeping away the discriminatory legislation that had applied to gay people, which again a lot of young people now kind of can't think was possible so recently. So yeah, it was a big moment. And one of the things I'm proudest about what we did in government was that movement forward. And it was, we were a trailblazer, not just here, but in the world as well in terms of our laws.
What sort of attacks did your opponent subject you to?
Oh, I mean, I just can't remember the exact quote, but he said on the day after I was selected that, Ben Bradshaw is a disease-ridden, sterile homosexual who works for the BBC, speaks German, rides a bicycle, hears everything about our country that is wrong. Leaflets were put out on my council estate saying if I was elected, your children will be in danger. And of all of that, it sounds incredible now. But it was, I had a very strong instinct that this stuff wouldn't work for him. And actually, I remember walking through one of these estates on the day or the day after one of these leaflets had gone out, and this working class woman coming out of her house saying, "This is disgusting. This is absolutely disgusting." I kind of thought then, yeah, he's not pitched this right, has he? So we had the world's media as well as a result of this in Exeter, which I think the people quite liked, and the kids in Exeter, I mean, they're probably not really interested in politics, but they all still know who I am because of this kind of history has been passed down the generations, and I think that's quite an unusual situation to have, all thanks to this campaign back in '97.
Do you see any parallels between how the lesbian and gay community were treated back then to the debate about trans rights, trans people today?
I do a bit. I see some of the tone and some of the language used about trans people, the misunderstandings, and they remind me of some of the stuff that went on in the 80s with gay and lesbian people. Some of the moves that we're seeing now, for example, by the government to kind of try to sort of discourage teachers and schools from discussing these issues or allowing children to discuss them in an open and honest and fair way. And that does worry me because, if anything, trans people are an even more set upon minority than lesbian and gay people were back then. No one would choose to be trans necessarily. There are lots and lots of difficulties and problems you face in that situation. And I just think to have such a lot of anger and prejudice and bile expressed in some of our mainstream media on a daily basis must be really, really tough. And we have a trans godson who was very, very ill as a young girl, and we nearly lost her. And she transitioned in her late teens. He is now a happy, well-balanced young man getting on with his life. And I just wish sometimes that people will come together and discuss these things with people who've got that lived experience, because I think so much of the commentary we see is not based on lived experience, is not based on having listened to the people who are in that situation. And I think if perhaps more people did, we'd have more tolerance and more mutual understanding.
Do you think we're a long way from getting a trans member of parliament?
I hope not. I hope not. I mean, quite a lot of other liberal democracies have had trans members of parliament, and I hope that that's something that will happen soon. I mean, I think the statistics are probably mitigate against it, because we're talking about a really very small proportion of the population. And it's difficult enough, I think, for trans people just to get on with their lives, let alone going through the process of standing for parliament. But I think we've got trans people in local government, and hopefully in my lifetime, and maybe sooner than that, we'll have a trans member of parliament. And I think we'll see what happened when we had a lot of gay and lesbian people coming into parliament in the 1990s. That suddenly the public discourse changed, and we live in a completely different world now. So
25 years observing politics and parliament at close quarters. How has our politics changed for the better in that 25 years?
I think for the better. Well, Parliament is a less stodgy, old-fashioned, stuffy place. I mean, the hours are kind of, they're still long, but they're more normal. Much easier if you're a woman, for example, or have children. Parliament's much more diverse than it was when I came in, and I think some of the things that the way we treat people has improved. On the other hand, I don't think there's any doubt that social media and the social media age has brought a flip side to some of those improvements in terms of the tone of the discourse sometimes. And we've seen, haven't we, some really horrific and fatal attacks on MPs in recent years. And I still don't think we've quite got a handle on that. I mean, the government's trying now through its digital bill to regulate this part of our media, which is pretty much completely unregulated, unlike broadcasters like you. So I hope we can feel our way through this. But there's no doubt that on the one hand, there have been massive improvements and strides forward. But on the other, I saw Tony Blair say in an interview the other day he wouldn't want his children to go into politics. And I thought, that's really sad, because actually being an elected representative is a very noble calling if you do it right and represent your constituents and work hard. And there's no more nobler calling really in a democracy. And I think if people feel put off because of the level of abuse that they're suffering, then we have a real problem. And I think we need to deal with that collectively as a nation.
Have you changed constituency surgeries and how you do them over the last 25 years?
Sure. I mean, long before the murder of Joe Cox, I mean, I had kind of stopped doing all-comer open constituency surgeries, partly because I didn't think they served my constituents very well. You don't want loads of people turning up in a room and having to wait for ages to see you. I've been running appointment-only surgeries for a very long time, and actually generally when I'm contacted by a constituent with a problem, we say to them, yeah, of course you can come and see Ben, such and such a time, Friday after next. But then, can you tell us what the problem's about? And if they say it's about X, well, we can deal with that now on the phone. So actually, you're giving people a better service by just dealing with their problems or their issues immediately via email or telephone, rather than having to have a face-to-face meeting. So it wasn't so much a security thing for me. And of course, we're all still out and about in our constituencies where we make ourselves accessible. We do make ourselves vulnerable. But I don't think there's any, you wouldn't want to lose that. And I remember when I was a Foreign Office minister travelling to some countries in the Middle East, where ministers lived behind barbed wires with guards and dogs and motorbike outriders just to go out to the shops, and they were kind of amazed that I was still cycling to work, and I don't think we'd want to lose that. That would be a real shame for our democracy.
What's the hardest thing that you have been through in that 25 years of serving your constituency, being an MP?
I mean, I think, again, this is probably, not where GBNews is, but I mean, I'm still traumatised by the Brexit vote, I have to say, Gloria. I mean, I still think that in time we will live to regret this. I don't see any other Western democracy making such a big strategic error in our lifetimes. And I know there's nothing you can do about that now, but that is still here, and makes me feel, the old adage, all political careers end in failure. feel very true about me because I campaigned very hard against it. I think kind of the other thing that was really, really tough for me, and I think for most Labour MPs and many Labour voters and members, were the kind of factional battles through the Corbyn years. Things were really very difficult, not just at national level, but also at local party level. And a lot of this was unseen. A lot of people joined the party who'd never really been Labour. They made meetings very unpleasant. A lot of kind of decent, long-standing, moderate Labour members were driven away. And for many of them, that had been their life. And, it's difficult enough to attract people to volunteer for a political party and an organisation, which we need to do if we're going to have a healthy democracy. But when people turn up at a meeting and they're abused or shouted at or not allowed to speak, then why on earth would any normal person do that? And that was a really tough 5 years, I have to say. And there were the times, when I think quite a lot of us thought, why do we do this? But, we stayed and we stuck with it and we fought. And in the end, we've got into a better place. So it was worth it. But at the time, wow, as you will remember yourself,
yes,
it was hard.
It was tough. It was tough. Now, one thing I don't really remember seeing you at is the number of bars that are in the House of Commons, which, I'd like to pop into from time to time. Was that a conscious decision for you to avoid the various bars?
No, I think you find the staff at the members' bar rather surprised by that assertion. I think probably maybe having kind of been quite absent or relatively absent in my early years when I think the bars were a bit busier than they are now. Now I'm kind of one of the more regular attenders.
Are you?
Oh yeah. No, I mean I love going down there and. Are
the Strangers? Is that your favourite?
Yeah,
well, no, that was never my favourite.
Okay. Well, I've always liked going down there, supporting the local ales and the West Countryside that they serve from time to time, and also having access to the wonderful terrace outside in the summer. I mean, I'm not one of these people who would go and have a drink in the bar every day after work, but I like taking my staff for a drink after a hard working week. And it's been difficult during COVID because a lot of the bars and restaurants in the house have been closed, and more so than they have actually in the real world. And I think with Parliament's long hours and with an MP's long working week, I wouldn't go out of my way to hang around in a bar when I don't have to be in Parliament.
No,
so I tend to go to the bar, while votes are happening or before we go home. But, my time with my husband and with family and friends and in the constituency has always been too important for me. So, maybe I haven't been there as much as some people.
There's an old saying in politics, if you want to find a friend in politics, get a dog. Is that accurate? Can you have real friendships when there's so much rivalry and ambition?
I think it depends on the person. I mean, for me, my friends have always been outside politics. They've tended to be old friends from university or from my previous journalistic career. There are people in politics and in Parliament who I really like and would like to develop friendships with maybe when I retire. But I think you're right in a way. For example, there were no politicians at my wedding. Actually, but there was a New Zealander, a New Zealand Labour politician, but there were no British politicians. So that's quite different from quite a lot of politicians' weddings.
I think I had two, but that's not bad. But some of them are like political events.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think people are different in that way. But I've made really good friends in my constituency among local activists, and particularly the next generation of activists. And when they take forward, this Exeter story, I will be watching them and supporting them and keeping in touch with them and hoping they go far. And I hope that those will become kind of nice, long-lasting, lifetime friendships as well.
And finally, do you have any regrets? Do you wish there is anything that you would have done differently during those 25 years?
No, I'm often asked this question, and
there's me thinking I'm original.
But it's the obvious question that every politician is always asked, and I honestly don't think there's any single thing or moment when I really regret having done that rather than that. I feel extremely blessed. I've had an amazing run. I've been lucky enough to have had the privilege of not only serving as a constituency MP for as long as I have, given it was a former Tory seat, but also a government minister for 10 years. Not every politician gets that. You have to have the luck of the draw, the luck of the timing. So yeah, no, I mean, as long as I keep my good health and can enjoy a few years of retirement, no regrets whatsoever.
Ben Bradshaw, very happy interview. It's nice
Delighted.
to hear. Thank you.